Mounting this picture is an enormous task. You had an army of people working with you.
This is one of those stories that we all relate to. We all grow up with. We all want to be King Arthur.
This be our destiny, and so be it.
Sort of ideas I think we have about King Arthur come from the sort of very romantic story we have in our heads.
My father told me great tales of you. We haven't actually seen a King Arthur film set at this particular period.
We're trying to make a gritty, real film set in the Roman era, and I think we've succeeded in that.
There's a theory that says a group of Sarmatian warriors were stationed as part of the Roman legions along Hadrian's Wall. These men were led by a centurion named Lucius Artorius Castus. Artorius being the Latin, of course, for Arthur.
I'm Arthur Castus, commander of the Sarmatian Knights sent by Bishop Germanus of Rome.
David Franzoni, who wrote Gladiator, came in and pitched us this idea of the origins of the King Arthur legend.
This be our destiny, and so be it. But let history remember that as free men, we chose to make it so.
I was always intrigued by the Arthurian myth. Everyone knows who King Arthur is, but no one really knows where he came from.
He's very human. There's no magic. The power is in the man more than the sword. You don't just become a king by wielding a sword. You have to earn it. And this is what the movie's about. Him earning the right to be king.
Make it big. Let me see weapons in the air, ready to fight. All right, great.
The most important thing Antoine brings is a realism and grittiness to the piece. He's so perfect for this, and he's brought so much unbelievable stuff to this.
You know, I've been following Antoine's career since he did video for me for Dangerous Minds. He did the Coolio video, and that's how I really first started working with him. It's how talented he was.
Jerry's like the guy that keeps his eye on like the young talent, and then when he thinks you're good enough, he kind of plucks you, and brings you to life.
Once he slams you down, you get set, because I want to see him.
Antoine's pretty amazing. Dealing with this enormity of the production. God's got an amazing task in his hands.
Okay, come on, let's go back to one. Just for this angle right here.
Jerry would come over, he'd just like, you're doing great, just keep going. He's like a general.
But I think the main thing that Antoine brings to the table is he allows you to bring what you want to the character. He's interested in what you have to offer. He's just taking the best of everybody's ideas.
It would be good for you to mark my face, Saxon. It will be the last thing you see on this earth.
I wanted to get a leading man who had the presence and power and grace to pull it off. I met Clive, and I couldn't get him out of my head. He was King Arthur. He's a bit of a mystery, and that's what we wanted for Arthur as well.
The thing that separates him has always got his eye on the bigger picture. He can't help himself. If there's unfairness, he feels it's his responsibility to intervene.
Help this man. Help him!
Clive's a very smart actor. That's what makes a great king, a very smart man who's also a great warrior.
King Arthur!
We've only ever seen Guinevere as the damsel in distress. My Guinevere's not like that.
When we hired Keira Knightley for Pirates, she was 17 years old. She's now 18. We showed Antoine film and tape of her. He fell in love with her.
When you meet her, she's such a tough, pretty, smart teenager. And then when you put her on film, this woman just like explodes onto the screen.
I belong to this man.
She starts off as being the delicate, beautiful woman being rescued, and you discover, man, she's as tough as a knight, she can fight.
Your hands seem to be better.
It took us forever to find Lancelot, and then we met Yoan, and I was just like, he's it. He's got this boyish charm about him. He's like this kid in a way, but he's got a darker side as well.
I think Lancelot is the voice of reason. Lancelot believes in the earth and what he can touch, what he can feel, or what he can kill. He loves Arthur as a friend, and however much he disagrees with his actions, he has to go along as a friend.
Ireland worked out for a lot of different reasons because it's lush and it's big and it's dark most of the time. And I think you have to feel it too. You need to be in European soil. The wall had to be real. I had to be able to get up on the wall in the film. I had a battle scene at the end that I wanted people fighting on the wall.
This huge expansive wall, which is Hadrian's Wall, was built to keep out the marauding barbarian Picts or Woads who otherwise were pouring down into the south. It stretches all the way across this neck of land severing the northern part of the island from the rest of it.
We took measurements of the stones and the things they actually used when they built the wall, and we made our molds the exact same size.
When you build this sort of huge set, you are facing quite a lot of issues. The wall took 4 months and a half to be built. The crew was more or less 250 person. It was the main set of the movie, so it was a very big construction.
Antoine, when he used his helicopter shots, you could see the scope of this wall. This is not a lot of digital work on this wall. This is a real wall that we built out in this field in Ireland.
Most of the movie and most of the sets was, historically speaking, very accurate. The design for the round table came to an idea of mixing Roman architecture and the King Arthur mask.
We have been here now for about 6 months, concentrating on all the dressing for the Roman army, the battle standards, battle dragons, that type of thing. Antoine seems to like a lot of cameras on set. Everything has to be able to be shot from any angle, from any distance as well.
Between the Woads, Saxons, Romans, we must have made about 300 blades, 750 spears, and probably 300 axes in total. They must have made about 10 different prototypes of Excalibur. The Excalibur sword itself is quite concept looking, read vertically from the bottom to the top, is defender of the land.
Antoine, the feeling he gave us was that he wanted strong, he wanted brutal. I just thought we should go for blood and guts. And I, assured him that they would be filthy and that we would really, really make it look as original as we could. Leather.
Penny Rose did Pirates of the Caribbean. She designed all those great pirates, and she has such a creative flair, yet she also has the practicality of knowing that you have actors in these suits. They have to be light, they have to move, they have to fight, so you have to have the stuff that's designed so they can use movement and not get exhausted every time they lift a sword up.
Think, okay, we're about to play the Knights of the Round Table and you expect to be all sort of decked out and gallant. And here I am kind of looking a little bit feral, and I like it.
It's a show which has required virtually everything to be made. I've got peasants, I've got servants, I've got Saxons, I've got Woads, I've got Romans, I've got knights and knight servants. I've got 2,000 to 2,500 costumes in all. It's big, it's very big.
Had 2 weeks of solid training, horse riding, learning the choreography of the fights, and obviously getting to know each other as a bunch of guys.
We're doing an awful lot of our own stunts that would normally be done by riding doubles or action doubles. We're throwing ourselves into the mix. Arthur's a brilliant fighter. People talk about this incredible sword. But it's not a magic sword. It's the way he uses the sword that's more important. The guy is a pretty incredible fighter, and that's his chosen, trusted weapon.
Lancelot's weapons of choice are his 2 swords. He draws them out like this, and he's ambidextrous. He can fight with both swords at the same time, and of course can kill twice as many people.
Antoine wanted a different feel to each man's fighting. He gave us characters for all of them that we tried to bring out with the weapons.
It took weeks and weeks of practice on how each battle was designed as far as the sword play is concerned. It's very dangerous.
You have to be choreographed and you have to be very precise or you will kill somebody. It's not only about waving swords. It's like doing a 3-minute heavyweight boxing round, and you have to do it maybe 10 times in a day. And I'm chain smoking, and I'm middle-aged. I'm not supposed to do things like this.
Women did fight on equal standing with men. That's a historical fact. It makes the character a lot stronger because she is a warrior and she does have something to fight for.
Keira Knightley. All of the action scenes, she did them all herself.
Sword fight, archery, axe fight, knife fight, a bit of garroting, which is particular fun, I have to say, and a lot of running about.
The most important thing for me in preparing for the film was horse riding. I'd done very little horse riding. Key thing was to feel comfortable and look like you know what you're doing on a horse.
The major thing with this is that it's all the actors doing all the riding.
Probably 75% of the film I'm on the horse, and I understand now why John Wayne walks like he did.
The horse is dictating the rhythm of the scene often, and it's very hard to be precise.
The difficulty really is knowing that you have to hit this certain mark and you're trying to act and remember your lines and look a certain way and try to look cool at the same time.
Sorry, can we cut it?
Your legs are going, like kicking the horse and trying to get into position.
What the horse does is what you're dealing with, as well as doing the dialogue. I resisted that. I was finishing up at Anton. I didn't do what I wanted to do in that scene. And he would say, no, just come and look, see the playback. And in the playback, it's part of the scene. What the horse is doing is key to what the scene is.
What are you fighting for?
I fight for a cause beyond Rome's or your understanding.
With the actors, it's the most amazing thing. I was asking the world of them. I was asking them to learn how to ride horses, how to fight on a horse, to know how to shoot a bow and arrow from a horse. I was asking them to learn how to fight with swords, to be able to go from beginning to the end of an entire fight and know every move. I was asking them to be in enough shape for me not to have to stop filming, and I was asking them to stay focused on their acting at the same time, and they did it.
We have some 400-odd extras that have never seen a shield or spear before. They will replicate a Saxon military unit.
7, 8, 9, 10. Stop.
All right, look to the right and line up on your flag, gentlemen.
It's an extensive period of basic drilling. Basically, I've just taken a military formation and put it in a working system for these civilians. We've done some very careful research on Saxon battle tactics, and we try to replicate as closely as we possibly can.
You guys over there, move on!
They're working with shields, they're working with spears. I've got archery training going on. We've selected 2 groups of reenactors to learn our sword techniques. To have 400 people who are supposed to be hardcore warriors not look like hardcore warriors destroys the value of the production.
Hi, Mom. I'm a star.
Company commanders, move them out, reverse order, and let's start over again.
Harry brings a discipline to the set. Harry had these guys marching frontwards, backwards, sideways.
Okay, Alpha Platoon, forward, march!
We had battle cries for all our Saxon invaders, and we found some wonderful things like Slachton Fiand.
Slachton Fiand!
We're actually 7 nights here facing 1,000 extras dressed up like Saxons. Our heart starts beating as the actors. It becomes kind of real when you're standing there.
When you make an epic story like King Arthur, you got to show the epic battles. Antoine figured out how he wanted to shoot it. He based it on one of the great battles in history of the Romans, how they took pig fat, created all the smoke and fire to confuse the enemy so the enemy couldn't see. Slawomir, our cinematographer, is somebody that we used on Black Hawk Down, and he's a proponent of using a lot of cameras, capturing reality.
We got 14 cameras. Sometimes it's very hard to find, the right position for so many cameras.
We had cameras on sticks, cameras in the forest, cameras on horses.
Cameras attached to swords and attached to the belly and the helmet of the combatants. You're actually in the battle.
You never would know how big and overwhelming a film like this can be until you do it, no matter what people say. Till you stand out there and look at 800 to 1,000 people with swords and bow and arrows and horses thundering around and smoke and fire.
Action all around, action!
Every time I said action, I was praying no one got trampled by a horse or one of the guys fell off or anything would happen. And it's one of those scenes where you go, I asked for this.
Visual effects are really used in this film in order to expand the scope of Arthur and his knights. The world that they live in is a very fantastical place, and we really need to bring the epic scale and grandeur, all of that which perhaps doesn't exist in England or in Ireland in real life. As we were filming in Ireland in the middle of August, nothing was frozen, and so really we knew from the beginning that that scene was totally going to be visual effects. Our job is really to go in and completely create the environment from the ice that they're standing on through to the mountains and snow-capped peaks.
There's an entire battle that takes place on this frozen lake. There's going to be almost 300 shots that will require either a matte painting or 3D CG background. This is a wide shot. My job is to replace this with a much more threatening and snow-filled environment. Completely fabricated but believable layout. People would think that this was a real location.
Towards the end of the sequence, the ice starts cracking. They get the Saxons, they trap them. And what we're doing is some shots where it's underwater looking up at the ice that's above. And we'll see the Saxons walking across and see it cracking.
doing a lot of CG armies so we can have thousands and thousands of CG Saxons.
Because you have so many characters that you have to put into the scene, so many soldiers, we couldn't hand animate each one, so we have software that will come up with that animation for us.
We're just another tool in the director's palette. We can do things in a different way.
I thought it was sort of an interesting idea to tell the King Arthur story minus the myth, as it were. But at the same time, I suddenly realized as soon as you put the music in, it mythologized the characters. It's not rock and roll, but at the same time, one of the things I've been trying to do is make Arthur and his knights more like a sort of a biker gang. They're not quite as squeaky clean as you expect them normally.
Are you from Rome?
From hell. Everything should evolve around Arthur as the apex of the characters, sort of based on a tiny little motif, three-note motif. Everybody gets handed those three notes at one point or the other, in different disguises, as it were. And of course, we have a love theme, and I got Moya Brennan in from Clannad to come and sing. She's got such a great voice. You just want to enhance the emotion, really. You want to put a framework around the scenes that gives them some sort of a flow and a structure, and hope something informs the characters in some good way.
I hope people leave the cinema with a sense of that they've seen a classic epic film.
It's about a guy traveling on a journey. He becomes a man of his land and a man of his people.
There's a warrior in all of us. There's a king in all of us. You have to choose your destiny, choose your fate.
The scope of it, the size of the battles, the nobility of the characters, and the heart of the characters. It's an epic film.
How did the story come to you? I mean, what sparked you? Did you research it? Did you just come across something on King Arthur?
Well, I'd actually seen something about the fact that the legends of Arthur might have come from the Sarmatians who were sent over to Britain to fight with Rome. And while I was doing Gladiator, I kept this thing in the back of my mind, you know, Arthur, the Romans. And so when I went off to Italy, I began to research and to write it. And Strangers in a Strange Land, sort of the Wild Bunch, very different from everything we've ever done about Arthur, and for me, the first believable Arthur that I'd ever come across.
How many Britons have you killed?
As many as tried to kill me. It's a natural state of any man to want to live.
Animals live. It's a natural state of any man to want to live free.
Well, what did you think about the take on Guinevere?
What's interesting about it is that there is some historical relevance, because I think the Picts and the Celts were all matriarchal societies. And actually the Celts, I think, were matriarchal until about the 11th century or something like that. So that was sort of fascinating. If you do put it in a time, you were trying to make a reality out of all the stories, and you put it in that time, then it is accurate that she would have been a warrior.
And I think everybody expected you to be introduced in a completely different way. I mean, we introduced you in a prison cell, and you don't look all glamorous and beautiful. And, you know, I think that was a good choice as well, you know. It's a better way to get a relationship going with Arthur, as opposed to just you walking down the steps looking like an angel, which we know you're not.
Shut up.
We won't get into that.
Yeah, thanks. All right.
Lancelot just loses again.
Yes, exactly.
How'd you feel about it?
Well, it was great fun to play because we didn't actually physically get in contact. You know, it was just all sort of suppressed or in the subtext.
That's right.
Anton, when you first saw the script, I'm sure you began thinking about what it would be like to make this movie. What were the first things that went through your mind about how difficult this would be to shoot?
I had no idea how difficult it would be. I had no idea. Jerry tried to warn me, but I had no idea. I mean, I think the first thing that went through my mind is how complex it was. The new information that you get when you read about Pelagius and free will and Arthur being Roman and Britain. I mean, I grew up studying Joseph Campbell,
mythology and things like that, and I've never heard anything like this before.
Especially because every King Arthur movie that's been made so far is only a perception, isn't it? I mean, it's a myth that is, there are different versions of, so I think any movie that's been made is only somebody's take on it, isn't it?
Every generation has adopted their King Arthur, back from the 7th century to today, and we've just created a new King Arthur. This is one of the great soap operas of history, the story of Guinevere and Arthur, and it went through the whole French courts in the 13th and 14th century, where that was the favorite story of the kings. The jesters would come in and tell this wonderful story about Lancelot and Guinevere and the knights, and they were enthralled with it. So that's how stories were told, by storytellers. I'm amazed by the choreography in the sword fights. I mean, how detailed they are and how skilled these swordsmen were, and the tactics they used, and just amazing. And the first movie I've ever seen that really shows you the tactics, other than guys just clanging swords.
Well, that's what was great about the stunt guys, was I think they did give us all a different kind of characteristic through the fighting, which was really great. So you felt that you kind of owned your own fight, your own style, and all the rest of it, and that was very clever. And to be able to, I mean, because we had the 3 months before to train, we could do it ourselves, which I think for me really helped my character, because suddenly you understood exactly what it would have, well, kind of what it would have been like to be in that situation, and exactly physically what you needed to be able to do, which made it kind of fascinating.
The only slightly annoying thing is Rob, my stunt guy, used to do all my fights in a t-shirt and be deft and fast, and then I'd clomp in with all the armor going, thanks, Rob. Thanks for that, mate.
With the real sword, too.
Now, who along, I mean, I know you designed a lot of this stuff, but who helped you in choreographing these? Did each actor kind of work with their own stunt person and kind of work it out, or was Harry Humphreys?
Well, yeah, Harry Humphreys, definitely. Harry Humphreys, I never saw a group of Irish sort of rogue guys get whipped into shape so fast.
Yes.
Harry just sort of, I remember one day, I said, okay, Harry, I need these guys to have a military quality, but still barbarians, and I need them to get it together, and we got like an hour. In about half an hour, I heard the Saxons over there marching and doing battle cries, and I looked over the wall, and they were all lined up and in shape, and they were, it was pretty incredible.
Send what's left of your infantry in. You want to kill my man? They're my men!
So what about Till and Stellan as the heavies in the movie, and a very heavy movie? I mean, how did you feel about those guys?
Yeah, I think Stellan's a brilliant actor, so is Till. Stellan brings a lot to the table as far as being the bad guy.
He's imposing. I mean,
he's imposing, but he's an
really
intelligence as well.
Yeah, and there's a brutality to him and a gentleness, and yet he frightens you just by the way he talks, the way he carries himself. Just his body language is frightening.
He was amazing though. He'd come in every single day and practice with all the guys just to get it perfect, because he chose very specific movements that he wanted to use, didn't he? And as soon as he became the character, you'd see him walk in a different way. I mean, he was absolutely terrifying. I wouldn't go near him on set. Yeah, it's huge.
I think it's also a very exciting thing of the film that both, you got Till, Stellan Skarsgård, Mads Mikkelsen. They're some of the best actors from their own countries. I was really excited. These are the cream of European actors, so it's very exciting to be.
What was great too, what you guys did on your own as well, was you humanized it, because it's very easy to shoot an action sequence once it's designed and laid out. Then you go shoot it. Yeah. But it's very difficult to make it into a dialogue scene, like you guys did, where you actually see two people tired from fighting. They're actually exhausted. You never see that in movies. People just fight and flip each other around, and no one gets tired. These guys were tired and exhausted, and you brought all that to the table.
It wasn't so much acting.
But it had a dialogue. It was like I always looked at the battle scenes more as scenes than just fight sequences, because they had emotion tied to them. Lancelot trying to get to Guinevere, Arthur trying to get to Gawain, and trying to get to Tristan before he dies.
I think that's always important in those scenes. You've got to, you've got to always remember that the characters are fighting with a perspective. It's boring just watching a well-constructed fight scene unless you're invested in it, unless there's some purpose.
You're invested in the character to survive.
I don't know if you guys realize, and maybe you do, how much work you actually put into the fighting and the horse riding. When I watch it, I'm fascinated in how fast you were riding these horses and how well you were fighting on these horses. You remember when you're going through the crowds and you're swinging these swords? I mean, it's very dangerous. I watch it now and I go, you know, wow.
Why did I get them to do that?
But it's amazing that you all did that.
I think it was quite exciting. I think we were all quite excited by that. We did do a lot of the horse stuff, and the guys that took us through all that as well, Steve Dent and all these horse guys, they're absolute brilliant stuntmen, brilliant horsemen, and we were taken through that pretty impressively in terms of, I know I personally sort of started from scratch regarding horse riding, and literally the journey that I went on by the end in terms of feeling comfortable on a big, very lively animal. I think it's unusual to see the actors doing as much as we did ultimately to go that fast three-wheeled in those ways.
But we were on those horses every day. I mean, really, you know, and they were the same horses, obviously. And so you do end up feeling totally comfortable. I've never had that feeling before. And it reminded me of a story that I think you told me, like, right at the beginning of shooting, that you'd read about Sarmatian warriors when they would travel long distance on their horse, would actually drink their horse's blood from a tube, you know, so that they could just keep going.
Well, I did that, didn't you?
Well, I mean, I hate long journeys as well, you know. But I mean, that's how, you know, much they were almost, it was man and horse, they're one, you know. So the fact that we did do a lot of our own stuff was all for the best.
Never felt in any danger, did we, you know?
Well, occasionally when I was near you in the lineup, I was scared.
Of course, you start biting each other. But it's pretty amazing, though, when you asked me, like, when I first read the script, what I found complicated about it. Everything was complicated about it, but to stage scenes on horses was almost impossible, especially your horse. Remember those days when he would just, Lancelot's horse would just do whatever he wants to do?
He's Spanish, was he a bit temperamental, wasn't he?
Yeah. You know.
Also, I think there's something that you came out with, which I think was a really fantastic call, was that it was very important to keep those horses moving, that we never got into a static situation, the two actors sitting on a horse having a chat. There was an energy and a sense of aliveness all the time. And that is incredibly difficult for you to direct and keep matching everything. It's hard for us to act because you think, yeah, we've got a little rhythm down. I think I know what I want to do with the scene, and then it's dictated by the horse. Because if the horse does, it's like, and the horse bosses the scene, you know. But I think that it was a right call to take that on, because if we did every time, you know, if we have these fast action scenes, then everything stops. There's two heads talking like that, and then we go again.
You know, this is also the first movie that I think I've ever seen where the bow is a personality. The use of the bow by the Sarmatians, especially by Kira. What was it like training to shoot the bow?
I loved it. In a word, no, it was great. I mean, we did have different bows, didn't we? There was the Sarmatian bow, and then the long bow. I think we did. No, we didn't use that. That was a kind of shorter version of the long bow.
It was an earlier version of the long bow.
Yeah, but no, it was amazing. It was really amazing. We had some really great guys teaching us how to do it, and actually, I was lucky. I got a flaming arrow, which I've always wanted, which was great fun. But no, I mean, we did do a lot of training with that as well, or at least I did. And, a lot of running with the bow and all that.
Kira was a wizard with the.
Yeah, we did actually. We had contests, didn't we? Mads was good.
Mads was good,
well,
yeah,
thank you.
I remember when
Quite right.
I first sort of met Kira on the set. She'd been there for a couple of weeks already, you know, firing arrows, I don't know, 60 in a minute or something. And somebody said, "Yo, you better go and, you know, for your archery lesson." Oh, this looks easy if Kira can fire off. And of course, so I waltz up and hi Kira. And she's hitting the bullseye every time, and I'm sitting there, and he gave me the heaviest bow. I just couldn't pull it back to begin with, let alone. Oh, there's Kira Knightley there. Come on, go on. And of course, the arrow just fell like that. You know. Oh, don't.
So we'll just give you two swords. Actually, the best bit for me, the bows, was going back to the horse riding as well, was learning to fire bows and arrows from a moving horse. You know, and to get in comfortable enough so you could drop the reins. You know, pull the bow out, an arrow, attach it, fire it off vaguely in the right direction. You know? I mean, it would just, and then because you can only really go up and down, you can't control the horse, so then you have to put it back, grab the reins in time to stop the horse, turn it around, do the whole thing again. I spent days just doing that. And then when we came to it, because the way that Antoine wanted the shot, he just got someone to come in and hold the horse.
Not every time.
No, not every time. So we did do it. We did that as well.
You did it a lot. You did it in the opening battle, and you did it in the end battle.
Yeah.
And because I filmed you guys riding and firing.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's exciting experience.
Yeah. That's what I mean. You guys are just in such a zone, you don't really realize what you were doing. I mean, you know, you're doing some incredible stuff. You're riding these horses at, I don't know, what speed? I just remember yelling at you guys one day saying, ride them faster, you know, and then I see it, I'm like, they're really riding these things, you know? And you're firing at the same time and pulling, and you pulled the sword out and flipped it in the air. Bet you can't do that today.
Well, I think my arm's still suffering because I think I had 3 Excaliburs. There was the hero sword, which weighed an absolute ton. There was a medium one and the lightweight one for fighting, which wasn't ready early on. Yeah. Let's do it with the hero sword. Anton said, I really like that hero sword.
Glint, man. No, don't talk about
He's coming on your horse at a 45 degree.
I know that shot. Yeah.
Caught it. It's in the movie.
It's quite strange sitting on your horses, you know, and you're at the one end of the field, and you know someone's about to say action, it's going to come over the radio, but really all you can see is a burning field, and there's no camera in sight. In fact, everybody could have gone home, you know, and you're just going to ride into this stuff, and hopefully the other side there'll be a bunch of cameras, but maybe not, you know.
And a few Saxons.
And some Saxons, you know, but that's quite unique in filmmaking that you're unaware of the cameras because you can't see them because there's so much smoke.
And also the hard part for Antoine and our cinematographers, they had so many cameras, they had 10 or 11 cameras, and to place them where the other cameras don't see them. And yet you had such these huge battle scenes, and we had to cover it with a lot of different angles because you're not going to get the extras to go more than once or twice. I mean, that's going to be it.
Yeah, you'd never tell us where the cameras were. It was always a surprise. It was like, oh, there's one, right, okay.
It was like, you know, some Saxon comes running up to you and he's got like a camera.
Yeah.
If this be our destiny, then so be it. But let history remember that as free men, we chose to make it so.
So the great thing about the movie is it opens up a new discussion of possibly who the man could have been and who the people were that were involved in the Battle of Baden Hill.
Part of the irony of the Arturian legends is that they are so pure, that everyone is so noble, and their armor is so very clean, because they want to celebrate the glory of this one moment at Baden Hill, and yet that moment was as bloody and dirty and horrible as you can possibly imagine. But still, all of it came from that, and it's a remarkable moment in history.